Jury duty sucks. Gave me a lot of time to think about things that I needed to be doing, including this video. Catacombs of the Black Vatican by Zakk Wylde's band Black Label Society. Their first album in a couple of years since Order of the Black, which was reviewed on this channel and got some pretty nice scores, some very impressive work on that album. It was definitely an album that I really dug. I liked the mix and the variety. Can they deliver once again? Well, after all, it is Zakk Wylde. He is one of the most recognizable guitar players in the world right now. He's somebody that if you're a metal fan, there's a good chance you know of him. And if you're not a metal fan, or at least a metal fan through and through, and you just listen to a couple of bands, chances are that Black Label Society may be counted among them. It's certainly something that's true around the area that I live. That perhaps may not be true universally. So with Catacombs of the Black Vatican, we see the studio band for Black Label Society being shrunk down to a three-piece, with the only person handling any guitar duty being Zakk himself. They have a bassist and a drummer, which is kind of obvious and kind of dumb, however it needs to be mentioned, considering as a three-piece, this now gives them the opportunity to really write very tightly as this three-piece, and they've kind of gone through a circle of drummers over the past 2 years that has led them to where they are now, with the former drummer of Breaking Benjamin. So, that being said, this should be a very interesting process. What really are we to expect from this album? Well, the one thing that needs to be stated prior to anything is that this is the Black Label Society. There's no way that Zakk's musical vision is really going to be attacked that much just based around a newcomer coming to the fold from another band that really, harbors in another unique style, which is something that you would kind of think about whenever you go from Breaking Benjamin to the Black Label Society. However, basically, whenever you listen to this album for the first time, you're going to be impressed by a couple of different things. The first thing that you're going to be impressed with is the tightness of the band. This is one where they have certainly not gotten the opportunity of being together for numerous years in order to really tighten their sound together. And for a lot of other bands, this is something that ends up being a very large challenge, considering you don't have that cohesiveness, you don't necessarily have that chemistry that perhaps you would have after having a couple of albums under your belt and really learning about one another and understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses and ways in which you can use those strengths and avoid those weaknesses in order to create and write some very, very good music together. That's certainly something that doesn't seem to have been a large pitfall for the band on this album. Secondly, you're going to be very impressed once again, and really it's something where you shouldn't even be all of that surprised by Zakk's riff writing. This is something where he doesn't necessarily have to be over the top with his guitar work at all times. This is something where it's almost an exercise in both, melody and beauty, while also giving the opportunity here and there to really shred your face off. Now, some people may criticize Zakk Wylde's style, saying that it borrows heavily on some of the similar ideas that he kind of captures and reuses song to song. However, that's something where it really isn't true whenever there's principal variety. Just because you hear a couple of the musical ideas that perhaps are his trademark on multiple tracks doesn't necessarily mean that these are weak tracks. This instead is something where that's really what fits in. That's really the best piece of musical evolution, the best musical step for that song really to take in order to really get the free flow going, and not to mention it does maintain a bit of an organic feel that way. This album is definitely rich with that, and I also enjoy the variety that's on this album, which is something that mirrors other albums from Zakk Wylde. It always seems that whenever he writes these albums with his fellow bandmates, he wants to have a certain ideal of balance. This is not something where he needs to shred your face off for 11 or 12 tracks, just doing the same thing over and over again as far as the tempo is concerned and the speed of the track is concerned. This is instead something where he wants to give you something that has a nice mid-range to it with the opportunity to really, shred your face off, while also intermixing within there some slower tracks which could almost be hailed as metal ballads, and really give the pace a little bit more of a slow tone and really give you a little bit of an emotional strife, something that really is going to tug on you a little bit. This is somebody, and this is a band that has definitely delivered many of these moments throughout the years, and once again, we're going to see things like that on this album, and Shades of Grey, the very final track, is one that definitely doesn't exactly boast that very highly as far as its construction. However, with its length and the expansion of the composition, you can definitely see where a lot of Zakk's influences have taken him throughout his career. There's a lot of ofs on this album. Angel of Mercy, Fields of Unforgiveness, Heart of Darkness, you know, Shades of Grey, to mention that song once again. So there's definitely a lot of here. You know, there's a lot of description of something. However, this is something where the naming scheme doesn't necessarily bother a lot. These are very tightly written tracks that have a lot of different things to really offer a listener. And I think that change in tone and that little piece of variety factor in there is really what kind of delivers this album out from just being one that's kind of just a run-of-the-mill Black Label Society album. It's kind of like what Order of the Black was able to accomplish, where that intermixing variety certainly gives it a large amount of real replayability for a listener, and especially for the Black Label Society fan. The BLS fan that listens to these albums perhaps in the car on their way to the office, or just, you know, something that they listen to on their way to, you know, while they're trying to fall asleep, either that or just to get them pumped up, will definitely find a lot on here that they're going to really be able to use. Perhaps it doesn't have that real fist-pumping anthem that some of the past tracks have had. You know, we're not seeing any tracks where Ozzy makes a guest vocal appearance that's going to be plastered all over the radio. My Dying Time might get some airplay here and there. That's the first official single. However, this is just a consistent guitar album from womb to tomb. This is certainly one that has just a lot of great thought behind it. Not to mention, it's been kind of very carefully constructed, which is something that I definitely enjoy. The flow of this album is one where you almost don't even notice just how deep you get into it until you actually take a look at where you are in your playback. And whenever you have an album that flows that tightly and really has that much of a consistency to it, you know that you have the markings of a very, very fine release. Now, the version that I listened to, which was, I believe, the Deluxe Edition, I don't know if it's, you know, exclusive to any establishment. I know that we sell it at FYE. However, I'm not sure if there are other versions out there. It contains 2 bonus tracks, Dark Side of the Sun and Nomad. And Nomad kind of ends this album on a very strange note. This is something where you have a slower song kind of really delivering the final moments on this album, which is kind of out of place. You usually want to have that last track be reserved for something that really, you know, takes you out on a bang. But I guess you could say this is a bonus track, so it doesn't technically qualify. However, I really like this track. I really enjoyed what they did with this, and it kind of threw me a little bit of a curveball, because I expected something to be coming directly after that. And whenever the album went silent, I was kind of surprised, and it definitely encouraged me to listen to that one more time, and one more time turned into 3 more times. 3 more times will eventually turn into 7 or 8. Really, really enjoyed what they did on this song. Overall, these songs are just very well thought out. The writing on this has certainly been very calculated, not to mention with a flow where you feel as though, you know, it's just going so smoothly that you're not even sure how far you are. And whenever you realize it, you're kind of surprised and a little bit upset because the album's, you know, that closer to being over. You definitely have the markings of a very, very good album. I would give this album a 77 out of 100. This is one where it doesn't set the world on fire necessarily, you know, per se. This is one that's just very, very consistent, very solid. It has a very great tone to it, and it really establishes a lot of great themes. However, it also is kind of devoid of those anthemic tracks, those really, really big tracks, those memory-inducing tracks that perhaps have given the Black Label Society some hits in the past, either that or has given them a lot of praise in the past. This is definitely an album that is a solid addition to the discography, however, maybe not one that a lot of individuals will go out of their way, perhaps, to relive. That said, it's still also one that definitely deserves to be listened to. It's certainly one that deserves to be picked up, and it is one that the band can certainly be proud of, and fans of the band can be proud of their work. That being said, what was your favorite track off of Catacombs of the Black Vatican by the Black Label Society? What's your favorite album from the Black Label Society, and what do you think about this band in general? I'll talk to you guys next time. Cover Killer Nation reminding you that it's dangerous to go out into this world alone. Here, have some great music. Later.